That's a very good point, is understanding your rules of engagement and that line in the sand. I think a very common one for a lot of people, don't mess with my family.
Yeah.
Families are red line. You were with your kids?
Red line. Yes. Line in the sand.
Line in the sand.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a very common thread, which is good because we need to protect our children, our family, our loved ones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is another week and another episode of the Budo Brothers podcast. You got Kyle.
And Eric. Now, I have to tell you this story. The other day, I was shopping at the grocery store. And for whatever reason, I just have this radar for somebody stealing shit. Like, I know this person is going to steal some stuff. And I kind of like to do the whole, like, secret shopper. You know how some grocery stores, they actually pay loss prevention officers to dress in plain clothes and walk around with a bag full of groceries and pretend like they're just comparing prices while they're actually mic'd up and watching somebody try to be all Mr. Shifty Eyes and Willy lumping some merchandise. I watched this happen, and here's what was so crazy. As I'm watching, like, this person is about to steal something. It was just so obvious, sketchy looking over. Oh, and then he saw me and like, oh, I think he's loss prevention. I'm like, man, I'm just watching you be all sketched out. Like, yeah, obvious.
Yeah.
Sure enough, I'm looking at this other guy who's like, oh, these are actually the loss prevention officers. So there's two loss prevention officers triangulating on this shoplifter, and I was watching this whole thing go down. I felt like it was an episode of Cops. Right. And so here I am watching this, and the person just straight up saw their opportunity, booked it out of the grocery store, and the two loss prevention officers were further behind me, and I was at this point like, do I do something to stop it? So I did. I ran out of the grocery store. It was like just yelling like, hey, stop, bring that back, as if I was a loss prevention officer. And then the two dudes that are actually doing their job come out, tackle, arrest, handcuff, and here I am just like watching this, like, could you call the cops? It's like, I told somebody else to call the cops. Like, you call the cops. I just want to get on with my day.
Yeah.
But it was so wild, and it got me thinking, first off, maybe I should change careers and go into loss prevention. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason, I thought it was really exciting. I don't know. It was a wild experience, and I also feel like being a good Samaritan and stopping wrongdoings is also part of Budo, a part of being a warrior, like stopping bad things from happening.
You're better than me because I witnessed a liquor store robbery. Okay. I was down at the liquor store, and somebody filled up a shopping cart and went and ran right past the frickin' till, ran out the doors, and just booted it to the car. And literally, like, everybody in the store just looked at it. Even the person behind the desk is like, I'm not even going to bother, because it's like the place has this stuff covered, and you're putting yourself maybe at risk going and chasing these people down.
That's the conundrum.
Yes.
Like, and especially now, my Instagram feed is nothing but people just loading up garbage bags of stuff and walking out the front door, and no one's doing anything. They're just filming it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I guess our society is devolving to the point where laws don't apply.
Yeah. And it's a hard one, because if the business owner was in the store, it would be 100% different. The business owner will probably do something and like want to track that person down and want their information. But when you're the manager getting paid just over minimum wage, you're just like, forget that. Like, it's not worth risking my health over.
100%. What if they have a knife? What if they're insane? What if they're super high on something crazy and are superhuman strength? You have no idea. So it's like, I get it. It's difficult. It's not an easy situation, but it's like, how have we gotten here? How have we gotten to the point where it's happening a lot, where people just think they can just steal shit with no consequences?
Yeah. It's so tricky because you do want to do the right thing, the just thing, the honorable thing. But
that's where it's like, where do you draw the line? Like, what is being a good Samaritan and sticking up for people that can't stick up for themselves? And then what is stupidly putting yourself into a situation that might get you killed?
And one thing that Jay Cooper really talks about, especially in the reality checks, is your line in the sand. And Kevin Goat also talks about it in self-defense. What is your, he calls it terms of engagement. What is the point that is in your moral code that you know if this goes down, it's go time, and I'm okay with going at this point? Being clear about that before trouble happens is a very valuable mental exercise. What is your moral code? Because it's probably different for everybody. And is loss of property something you're willing to
throw down
over? Versus, like, what if it was somebody who is hurting another individual, or
stealing a grandma's purse,
or if somebody's verbally assaulting you? Is it time to go? When is it time to go? When they get too close? When they take their first swing? Like, knowing in your mind beforehand what your line in the sand is very powerful, because in the heat of the moment, it takes away the thinking.
Yeah, exactly. I could totally see that, where you just understand, hey, like, a good example would be if my rules of engagement had nothing to do with random shoplifters, I would have just carried on about my day. Mm-hmm. But there was just something in me that was like, oh, this is going to happen. Let's go. And I see these two officers.
And you stopped it.
I want to see how it goes down.
And it worked perfectly.
It did. But I also knew, like, hey, I'm not actually going to tackle someone.
Yeah.
And because that's the other thing. How many cases have you heard of good Samaritans actually ending up with court cases and charges for helping someone? Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, that's a real thing too.
Yeah. And imagine, they turn around and square off with you, and you're like, oh man,
didn't sign up for this.
I got to throw a punch.
Yeah.
And you land and connect perfectly, and that kills the dude. You KO him, and on the way down, he cracks his head on the cement, and that's it.
Manslaughter.
That's it. And all for what? Some Doritos and a frickin'...
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, like...
That's a very good point, is understanding your rules of engagement and that line in the sand. I think a very common one for a lot of people, don't mess with my family.
Yeah.
Family's a red line. You were with your kids?
Red line, yes. Line in the sand.
Line in the sand.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very common thread, which is good because we need to protect our children, our family, our loved ones.
And to your significant other, like, most people, if they're the dominant role in the relationship, if somebody insults or attacks their significant other and they're the protector, or they're the guardian, they're the alpha in the relationship, like, it's go time.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. They're gonna stand up for the relationship. Mm-hmm. But also, too, knowing that mentally and verbally, like, if somebody says these things to me, that's when I draw the line and say something back too. Mm-hmm. Because, a lot of people will chit chat, they'll say things, but, like, maybe it's like a certain way they do it, or they put you down in front of people that you're like, that's it. Like, I have to counter and argue with you at that point. And, are you a person that knows that they are going to react quickly, or are you a person that knows that you have a long fuse and, like, water off my back?
Yeah, exactly. Like, can you just let things go? Mm-hmm. Or will that eat you up inside and you feel like a coward for not sticking up for yourself?
Yeah. And are you a person that can walk away, or do you need to say something and confront that person head on? It's there's no right answer to it. It's just understanding what's best for you.
But it's also a good mode of operation to assume that everyone can kick your ass and is better trained than you.
Yeah.
If you just assume that, that's a good, with the amount of people that are training now and how popular MMA is, Jiu-Jitsu, and like, just assume everyone's a black belt.
Yeah.
And then has your rules of engagement been crossed to the point where you're ready to throw down with a black belt and something that you're not?
Totally.
Is it go time then?
Yeah. And also your exit strategy too. One thing that we really talk about in the self-defense with Kevin Goat stuff is like, you know, if you take somebody down, don't go to mount and start ground and pounding, and it's like do your thing and then exit the situation when the time's appropriate.
Head on a swivel.
Don't hang around and try to like overdo things.
Get to safety.
Yeah. The whole goal is to get home safe, has nothing to do with your ego.
So I think it just takes a check-in inside of us all to really get clear on what are those rules, what are those triggers, what are those red lines that if crossed, there is an immediate consequence.
Yeah. And I wonder this is like a more serious topic, but you know, like a hostage situation or where there's somebody coming into a group of people, robbing a bank, taking over a plane, coming into a school, like you can say so many things and try to mentally prepare yourself for those situations, but man, it's almost impossible to rep that one out and be prepared. Those types of situations are repped out by military SWAT, special services. They know how to run through and clear those situations.
Just pure heroism. Just it was a heroic act, right place, right time, right opportunity. Took the shot, took them out, he looked the other way and boom, saved someone. And he didn't even ever train in his life. Like we often romanticize like, oh yeah, if I was in a bank and and you know, I saw my opportunity, I'd take that. Like, that's a really nice Hollywood story.
I'd grab the gun, take out the slide, undo the thing, throw it at the other guy.
But how many times when shit hits the fan, scatters, or just freeze?
Yeah.
A lot of people freeze, you know, and I've been in situations where I would have thought I would have reacted one way and I reacted totally different.
Even street fights, you can be super trained and in sparring matches look beautiful. And then you see a scrap and it's just like a whole bunch of garbage techniques because you don't have time. There's no time to say we're going to fight by these rules. We're going to fight on the ground. We're going to fight standing. Like, you're a boxer. Like, you have no idea.
Well, you're drunk and
you're just going to throw things.
See what happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. What if you're doing boxing and all of a sudden the person picks up a chair? Like, you're like, you know, the possibilities are so infinite that your brain can't calculate the right techniques in the moment. You just have to act in the moment.
Yeah. And make sure that those actions don't lead to lifelong consequences. I think it's also really important for everyone to understand their local laws.
Yeah.
You know, there's some stand your ground laws. Like, somebody comes at you, hey, unload. Like this, you have a lot more rights in some jurisdictions than you do others. Others, a robber will fall through the roof and land on a knife and you're sued and you're liable.
Yeah. And the other thing too is knowing your terms of engagement with the weapons you carry. You know, we have a lot.
If you carry one at all.
Yeah. I know we have a lot of American listeners and we read the comments endlessly. Some people talk about taking out a gun and shooting somebody as if it's the same as eating a bag of Doritos. Right? Like, oh yeah, that's simple. I would just shoot that guy.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. If that's how comfortable you are with your terms of engagement, like that's you. But, you know, you have to understand too that if you're carrying that and you know that you could never shoot somebody and be okay with it on your conscience, like, you need to know what you're doing too, right? And whether you're carrying a knife or different tools, you need to know how and if you're going to use them in the situation, because you bring those things out and it escalates the intensity of what you're in very quickly.
Totally. And like Kevin Goat, is always saying, never bring something out that you haven't relentlessly trained with. You need to know what you're capable of. And to be honest, walking around with a weapon that you don't know how to use is a liability.
And this really goes towards the concept of staying in your lane, that terms of engagement. But you can extrapolate that into staying in your lane, even with like life. You can go outside of your realm of knowledge and start swinging and saying these erroneous things, and I can do this, and like, oh yeah, in business, oh yeah, I can handle that. But it's not your core competence. You end up getting yourself into a lot of trouble.
Yep.
Whereas if you stay in your lane, stick to what you're good at, you know what to handle and how you handle it. Like, this is what we do.
Yeah.
Budo Brothers, we put out quality products, martial arts, lifestyle products. That's what we do.
And great content.
And
We
great.
film incredible martial artists and share that with the world.
For us to pretend that we can go in and teach martial arts at a very high level, that's not...
It's not what we do.
No, it's
not
it's outside of our terms of engagement. We do not entertain that.
Our area of expertise. You know, we are not martial arts experts. Yes, we've trained a lot. We have a lot of fun. But that isn't I can't see a time or a day where you and I switch to teaching.
No.
Hey, I love teaching kids classes.
Yeah,
just because that's fun.
Kids class is different.
So much fun.
And, you know, you don't really need to be an expert to teach somebody who could barely put one foot in the front of the other to improve their martial arts.
And so much of it is development and just helping these young minds. And that's the fun part.
That's different.
But sticking to what you're good at is so important. And understanding... Gary Vaynerchuk says this all the time, too. It's
and he says the same things over and over.
He does. Focus on your strengths.
Yeah.
Focus on what you're good at. All your haters are focusing on what you suck at enough for you. You don't need to even give it the time.
And he just keeps his script so simple. Like, you're going to get bored of listening to this, and this is what I'm going to tell you to do over and over until you do it. Someday I hope you stop listening to me.
And I'll say it in a slightly different way every time, but it's the same message.
Yeah. Even with this podcast, right? We are really focusing on the content, but we've found out that we end up saying the same things over and over again. And we say it over and over again so much that we're writing a book about it.
Yes. Joy Jitsu.
Joy Jitsu. And we are going to be putting that out to the world and hoping that we make a little slice of our little mark in the history on the pages. Like, you know, it's a new adventure, new task, and something outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah, totally. We're going to write a book to help people find joy.
Yeah.
And we've called it Joy Jitsu because it's just like anything, you need to train it. To become and live a fulfilled, happy life full of abundance, that is difficult to do. It requires training. It requires practice. It requires fundamentals that if you focus on, it will lead you to a proven path of abundance and success.
Love that.
Budo Brothers Challenge.
Budo Brothers Challenge is to figure out what fundamentals and core competencies that you have that bring you success and sticking to them. If you want to apply that to your career, go for it. If you want to apply that to your martial arts, go for that. If you want to apply that to being a secret shopper, go for it. But drawing the fundamentals and your rules of engagement that you can stick to order to be successful in high pressure situations and to increase your longevity and success over time.
Beautiful. Until next week.